What if the frustration you've been feeling isn't random? What if the delays, the sudden endings, the heavy silence in your life aren't setbacks, but signals? Lately, it feels like something is trying to reach you, through the closed doors, through the discomfort, through the restlessness you can't explain. You've been asking for guidance, for a sign, for direction, and now everything feels intensified, almost intentional. What if God isn't ignoring you, but trying to get your attention in ways you didn't expect? Don't scroll away. Watch this video till end. Subscribe and like for clarity. It didn't start with clarity. It started with disruption. The routine you depended on began to crack. Plans you carefully arranged shifted without warning. Conversations changed tone. Opportunities slipped through your hands. What once felt stable started to feel uncertain, and you weren't ready for that. You worked hard to build something predictable, something safe, and now it feels like the ground beneath you is moving. At first, you called it bad luck, poor timing, misfortune. You tried to fix it quickly to restore the comfort you had. You pushed harder. You tried to control what was falling apart. But the more you forced it back into place, the more resistance you felt. And that's when the frustration turned personal. You started asking why. Why now? Why this? Why does it feel like everything is being interrupted at once? It's uncomfortable to admit, but part of you feels betrayed. You did what you were supposed to do. You followed the path that made sense. So why does it suddenly feel like that path is closing in on you? Because sometimes the first sign isn't gentle. Sometimes the message doesn't come as peace. It comes as pressure. It comes as disruption strong enough to break your attachment to what was quietly limiting you. The routine you love may have also been the routine that kept you small. The stability you protected may have been the ceiling you refused to see. What feels like inconvenience might actually be intervention. Not punishment, not abandonment, redirection. You don't outgrow things comfortably. You outgrow them when they start to feel tight. When the environment that once fit you begins to suffocate you. When the familiar becomes restrictive instead of reassuring. That shaking you feel isn't always destruction. It can be construction happening in reverse, tearing down what no longer aligns. The disruption forces you to confront a question you avoided. Were you truly fulfilled, or just familiar with your limitations? And that's a shift. Instead of asking why this is happening to you, you begin asking what it's preparing you for. Instead of rushing to rebuild the old structure, you pause long enough to consider that maybe it needed to fall. Maybe the discomfort is clearing space. Maybe the interruption is creating capacity. Growth rarely asks politely. It interrupts. It unsettles. It challenges your attachments. But if you look closely, the disruption didn't come to destroy your life. It came to disturb your comfort so you could finally move beyond it. Nothing is falling apart, and yet something inside you won't settle. On paper, your life looks fine. You're functioning. You're meeting expectations. You're doing what you're supposed to do. But when the noise fades and you're alone with your thoughts, there's this quiet tension in your chest. A subtle dissatisfaction you can't explain to anyone without sounding ungrateful. You tell yourself you should be content. Other people would trade places with you. Nothing is terribly wrong. And that's what makes it harder. Because when there's no obvious crisis, you start questioning yourself instead. Why can't you just be satisfied? Why does everything feel slightly off, like a shirt that fits but never comfortably? That feeling follows you. In conversations, you drift. In routines, you move on autopilot. The things that once excited you barely move you now. It's not dramatic. It's subtle. A quiet ache. A sense that you're meant for something more. But you can't fully define what that more is. So you try to silence it. You distract yourself. You stay busy. You convince yourself it's just stress or comparison overthinking. But the restlessness doesn't disappear. It waits. It returns. It grows louder in moments of stillness. And maybe it's not anxiety. Maybe it's awakening. Maybe the discomfort isn't telling you that something is wrong with your life. Maybe it's telling you that you've outgrown the version of yourself who built it. You've evolved internally, but your external world hasn't caught up yet. That gap creates tension. Restlessness is uncomfortable because it removes the illusion that surface-level living is enough. It pushes you to question routines you once accepted without thinking. It forces you to admit that safety without fulfillment feels empty, that stability without purpose feels heavy. You're not broken for feeling this way. You're being stretched. That quiet stirring inside you is a signal. It's not screaming because it doesn't need to. It knows you feel it. It's nudging you beyond what's familiar, beyond what's predictable, beyond what keeps you small but comfortable. The dissatisfaction you can't logically justify might be the most honest part of you, the part that refuses to settle for a life that only looks good from the outside. This isn't about abandoning everything overnight. It's about recognizing that the ache has meaning. It's pointing somewhere. It's asking for expansion. And the moment you stop trying to suppress it, you realize the restlessness isn't your enemy. It's your invitation to rise. How many times does it have to happen before you admit it's not a coincidence? The same type of conflict, just a different person. The same disappointment, just a different setting. The same block opportunity, just wearing a new face. You tell yourself it's bad luck. You tell yourself people are just difficult. You tell yourself the timing is off. But deep down, there's a quiet realization forming. This feels familiar. You've stood in this emotional place before. The frustration, the hurt, the confusion, the promise that next time will be different. Yet somehow, the cycle repeats. And each time it does, it cuts a little deeper because you thought you had already learned what you needed to learn. Repetition can feel cruel. It can feel like you're being tested beyond what's fair. But what if it's not punishment? What if it's persistence? What if life isn't trying to trap you, but trying to teach you something you keep avoiding? The same trigger shows up because the same wound hasn't healed. The same block path appears because the same belief still limits you. The same relationship dynamic forms because the same boundary was never strengthened. Patterns don't repeat to frustrate you. They repeat to reveal you. Midway through this reflection, ask yourself honestly, what pattern keeps showing up in your life right now? Comment it below if you're ready to confront it. It takes courage to see your own reflection in the chaos. It's easier to blame circumstances. It's easier to point outward. But growth begins the moment you look inward and ask, what is this trying to show me? Maybe the repeated disappointment is exposing where you still seek validation. Maybe the recurring conflict is revealing where you haven't found your voice. Maybe the blocked opportunities are forcing you to develop patience, skill, or self-trust. Until you understand the message, it will keep arriving in different packaging. Life doesn't shout the lesson once and walk away. It circles back. It places the same theme in your path until you finally pause long enough to study it instead of escape it. The breakthrough doesn't come when the pattern disappears. It comes when you do, when you respond differently, when you choose differently, when you refuse to replay the same role in a story you've already outgrown. The repetition isn't there to exhaust you. It's there to wake you up. Midway through this video, ask yourself, what pattern keeps showing up in your life right now? Comment it below if you're ready to confront it. There comes a season when the noise fades, and so do the people. Messages slow down. Invitations stop. Conversations feel distant. The connections that once filled your days with movement and distraction begin to thin out. And suddenly, you're alone with your thoughts more than you ever wanted to be. It feels like abandonment. You start questioning your worth. You replay interactions in your head, wondering what changed. You ask yourself if you did something wrong, if you're being left behind, if you're simply not needed anymore. The silence feels heavy. Loneliness wraps around you in a way that's hard to explain to anyone who isn't living it. But what if this season isn't rejection? What if it's reduction? When the external voices quiet down, something uncomfortable happens. You can finally hear your own. The opinions that once influenced you aren't as loud. The expectations that once shaped your decisions begin to loosen their grip. And in that quiet, you're forced to confront yourself without distraction. Isolation strips away performance. You're not trying to impress. You're not trying to fit in. You're not adjusting your personality to match the room. You're just you. And at first, that can feel unfamiliar, even unsettling, because for so long, your identity was reinforced by who was around you. Now, it's being rebuilt from the inside. Loneliness is a way of exposing truths you avoided. It reveals where you depended too much on validation. It shows you where you ignored your own intuition to maintain connection. It uncovers dreams you silenced to stay relatable. This isn't comfortable work. There will be nights when the quiet feels too loud. Moments when you crave the old distractions just to escape your thoughts. But if you stay with it, if you resist the urge to fill the space too quickly, something powerful begins to form. Clarity. You start recognizing what actually matters to you. Not what's popular. Not what's expected. Not what keeps you accepted. You begin to understand your values without interference. Your desires without pressure. Your direction without outside noise. Isolation is not the end of connection. It's preparation for deeper alignment. The season of fewer people is often the season of stronger identity. The quiet is not empty. It's sacred. It's where your foundation is strengthened so that when the right connections arrive, you meet them as your truest self. You were not abandoned. You were being positioned in silence so you could finally hear who you're becoming. It hurts more when you were sure it was meant for you. The opportunity you prayed for slips away. The relationship you invested in ends without the closure you needed. The door you worked so hard to reach closes right in front of you. And in that moment, it feels personal. It feels like failure. Like you weren't enough. Like you misread everything. Rejection as a way of attacking your confidence quietly. You start replaying conversations, analyzing every detail, wondering what you could have done differently. You question your worth. You question your timing. You question whether you're simply not chosen. But what if the door didn't close because you were unworthy? What if it closed because you were unaware? Sometimes you can't see what's waiting on the other side. You don't see the instability hidden beneath the opportunity. You don't see the long-term damage behind the short-term excitement. You don't see how that relationship would have slowly drained you while convincing you it was love. You only see what you lost. And loss is loud. It echoes in your chest. It makes you doubt your direction. It tempts you to chase what walked away, just to prove you could have had it. But not every closed door is a mischance. Some are shields. Some are barriers placed exactly where they need to be to stop you from stepping into something that would have cost you more than you were ready to pay. Protection rarely feels gentle. It feels like disappointment. It feels like confusion. It feels like plans unraveling at the worst possible time. But you don't always get clarity immediately. Sometimes understanding arrives later, when you look back and realize what you were actually spared from. The job that fell apart might have limited your growth. The partnership that ended might have delayed your purpose. The opportunity that disappeared might have distracted you from something better aligned with who you're becoming. Redirection doesn't always announce itself clearly. It disguises itself as rejection first. And the shift happens when you stop asking why it was taken away and start asking what it made room for. When you stop chasing the closed door and start trusting that the right ones won't require you to beg, shrink, or betray yourself to enter. You weren't denied. You were protected. And one day, you'll look back at that closed door with gratitude instead of pain. It doesn't shout. It doesn't force you. But it doesn't leave either. There's something pressing on your heart lately. An idea you can't shake. A decision you keep postponing. A change you know you need to make, even though it complicates everything. You try to distract yourself from it. You bury it under responsibilities, under logic, under fear. But in quiet moments, it rises again. Stronger. You tell yourself it's unrealistic. You tell yourself the timing isn't right. You tell yourself you need more confirmation, more security, more certainty. Yet no matter how many excuses you build around it, that inner pull remains. It follows you into your routine, while you're working, while you're talking, while you're trying to sleep. It's there, not as noise, but as weight, a steady pressure on your spirit that refuses to dissolve. And the longer you ignore it, the heavier it feels. Conviction is uncomfortable because it demands honesty. It forces you to admit that you know. You already know the relationship isn't aligned. You already know the environment is shrinking you. You already know the step you're afraid to take is the one that leads to growth. The conflict isn't confusion. It's resistance. Part of you wants comfort. The other part wants expansion. And expansion always costs something. It might cost familiarity. It might cost approval. It might cost a version of you that feels safe but unfulfilled. That's why you hesitate. Not because you lack clarity, but because you understand the consequences of following it. But here's a truth you can't escape. If it won't leave your spirit, it's not random. Some thoughts fade with time. Some desires dissolve when they are not real. But this one has stayed. It has waited patiently through your doubt. It has resurfaced after every attempt to silence it. That persistence means something. It means you're being called forward. The weight you feel isn't there to burden you. It's there to move you, to push you beyond the edge of who you've been into who you're meant to become. Conviction is not anxiety. It's alignment knocking from the inside. And the breakthrough begins the moment you stop asking if it's real and start accepting that it is. When something refuses to leave your heart, it's not asking for permission anymore. It's demanding courage. In the middle of everything that doesn't make sense, you feel calm. Not because you have the answers. Not because the situation is resolved. The questions are still there. The future is still unclear. From the outside, nothing looks secure. And yet, inside you, there's something steady. That's new. There was a time when uncertainty would have sent you spiraling. You would have overthought every possibility, imagined every worst-case scenario, tried to control every moving part. Panic used to feel automatic. Fear used to take the lead. But now, even though the circumstances are just as unpredictable, your reaction is different. You're grounded. You still care. You still want clarity. But you're not frantic. You're not begging for signs. You're not chasing reassurance from everyone around you. There's a quiet confidence forming beneath the surface, and it doesn't need noise to validate it. That's a shift. Peace and uncertainty doesn't mean you've stopped hoping. It means you've stopped forcing. It means you trust that even without seeing the full picture, you're not lost. Something inside you knows you're moving in the right direction, even if the path isn't fully visible yet. And that knowing is quiet. It doesn't scream for attention. It doesn't demand proof. It simply settles into your chest and stabilizes you. While chaos moves around you, you remain centered. While others question your calm, you feel anchored in it. This kind of peace isn't accidental. It comes after the battles, after the nights you stayed up worrying, after the seasons where fear controlled your decisions. You've already wrestled with doubt. You've already faced the discomfort. And now, instead of reacting, you're responding. There's maturity in that. True direction rarely arrives with dramatic announcements. It doesn't always come with flashing confirmation. Sometimes it shows up as stillness in your spirit when logic says you should be anxious. Sometimes it's the absence of panic that tells you you're aligned. You don't have every answer, but you're not shaken. You don't see every detail, but you're not afraid. And that's how you know something deeper is guiding you now. Not pressure, not urgency, not fear, but peace. When calm replaces chaos inside you, even while the storm continues outside, you stepped into alignment with something greater than your circumstances. And that's when you realize you're not walking blindly anymore. You're walking steadily. And before this ends, reflect honestly. Are you resisting the message or ready to receive it? Comment, "I'm listening," if you're open.